I mean, his quotes sound like Bible quotes. He just said, "Such is the power of Nagash." The preceding lines to all of that is him describing for like 8 sentences straight how he can kill you for no other reason than he can.
All right, first and foremost, today's sketch is a request, user-on5uy9sr7p. That's a heck of a username. His request, drawing request, a Night Lord Chaos Space Marine, old style with a big bat wing helmet, chain sorting an opponent of your choice. I don't think I quite got the spirit. I didn't actually have him chain sorting. I have him with a chain sword, but so these drawings I'm doing, these are speed sketches. So what that is I'll do in one sitting from start to finish. I'll do pencil, ink, and just rip them out. So these are really fast. Took me about an hour total time, maybe an hour and a half. If I were to, sit down, really pencil things out, spend a lot of time, I could do some like almost photorealistic work. But what this is like I'm kind of knocking the cobwebs off. It's like a little boot camp I'm putting myself through. So I'm ripping these sketches out as if I was trying to produce for, an actual comic book. Because in those, you really got to kind of like, I don't know if you ever noticed, like a lot of comic books are not like, if you look at Kirby's work, Kirby could probably paint the Mona Lisa or something equivalent to that. These guys have the chops to do artwork that's phenomenal, but when you look at the comic books, it's really simple, basic line art. And the reason for that is because they're on a serious timetable. Like, you got to crank this stuff out. So a lot of the drawings, they do leave a lot on the table. And then it also depends on who's doing the penciling, who's doing the inking, and who's doing the coloring, because each artist adds their own interpretation to it. But for me, like, this one, I kind of went a little heavy on the shadows, and I'm not super happy with it. It's okay. It turned out all right. But I'm practicing. I'm practicing and knocking the cobwebs off, and as I get those chops back, I'm going to start doing some really nice stuff. But it'll also be different because I won't be able to do those in one sitting. You like a lot of those, you do some of it, go away, come back the next day, do a little more. Kind of like doing model kits, You can do a model kit in one sitting, but is it going to look as nice as something you spent 2 weeks on? I don't know. But anyway, let me know what you think, and we're going to dive back into comments. I can't find the user. I'm scouring for it, but somebody had asked me how I'm producing these videos, because I do them all by myself. Like, what kind of camera am I using? It was noted that they're a little rough around the edges, I do everything myself, and I'm self-taught, so it's, just like everybody else, we just sort of muddle through it. I'm using a Galaxy S22. I bought that phone because it had the best cameras, and now I think they're up to the S24 already, I don't even know. And I'm using a Power Director, and that's how I'm editing the videos. And I paid for the full version of Power Director. I have it on the laptop, and I have it on my phone, so I can transfer back and forth. I don't know if it's the best editing software, but it's really intuitive and it's easy for me to use, and I can pretty much do everything from the phone. Now, if I ever get to the point where I can do like a Patreon and start making a little money off of this, I will buy a better camera. We'll see. But right now, this is what I got to work with. Not like I couldn't go buy a better camera, but it's just like, dude, I mean, I don't know. I'm on a budget. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys know of like anything that's inexpensive that would be of an upgrade to what I'm using, I would definitely be interested in hearing what your setups are, because I'm always looking to improve. But like, again, I am on a bit of a budget. Although with all the Warhammer crap I buy, you kind of wonder about that sometimes. As promised, the first comment, JA37D34. He wrote, "Hey, I love the Top Gun Maverick. I love Top Gun Maverick. Basically the same story as the first, and it looked great. I didn't like as much as the first time, though it felt all right. But now, great movie, adventure. Does what it says on the tin." Now, that was a previous video, or what we were talking about, how nobody's going to watch movies anymore, and because it's all woke pandering. And you got Michael Eisner or whoever the Disney guy said it was just people are just not interested in movies anymore, and we're like, no, we just don't want to watch your garbage. And I pointed to Top Gun Maverick. Basically it did over $1 billion, and and it wasn't even that great of a movie, is what I said. Just because it was a nice, easy to watch popcorn flick that didn't have any woke pandering, people went and watched it. So that's nonsense, and there's many other examples that are like that. But he goes on to say, my sister is also basically a communist, because the same mine is, very naive. Yes, extremely, like no liberty. They have never known suffering at all. I schooled her on the Gaza conflict when she was outright lying about the facts. I was calm and informed her where she was wrong, but she did what they do when they're called out, screamed and then cried and then would not want to talk anymore, and she had no argument. Pretty pathetic. The way leftards can plain right lie and when called out become aggressive like that, and they call you all kinds of things. See, so what we're talking about is we will present a topic of discussion, and they don't argue the topic, they argue the presenter. They attack us instead of talking about what we're talking about. Now, I'm not getting into the Gaza thing. We're not going there on this video. But I will say that most of the people that are supporting terrorists can't find it on a map. Like, dude, I'm a Marine. You don't think I know about the Gaza conflict that goes all the way back to, come on now. And these kids, they don't even know what they're rioting, peaceful protests. Yeah, come on. These kids are rioting, they're tearing things up, they're fighting people, and they're literally supporting domestic terrorists. And their argument, their argument is basically, bad in the past means it's bad now is okay. And instead of, what we say is evil's still evil. Like, you could say, well, you shouldn't do that. And you could say, well, you did this before. You talk about Israel. Israel did some things in the past. That's what they're arguing. So it makes it okay for them to do some things now. It's fair, right? Except you're harming innocent people who had nothing to do with any of it. They just exist, and they happen to be there. That's both sides, if you want to really dig into it. How is that fair? Like, what's fair about that? How does two wrongs make a right? How does something that bad happened in the past make it okay to do bad now? That's our argument. Evil will always be evil, no matter how you try to justify it. And you're punishing people that have nothing to do with the conflict, and their only crime is being related to whatever group that you're assigning them to. So it's like, you could say, like, white people did things bad in the past, and I'm white, so therefore it's your fault. Even though I don't even know what you're talking about. Like my parents immigrated, my grandparents came over in World War II from Ireland. They immigrated from Liverpool, so they weren't even in America, until the 40s. So how are we responsible for all the stuff that happened before that? Well, you're still white. Oh, okay, that's a good argument. I don't know. It's just stupid. It's always stupid. But again, then when you try to point out factual information to them, you can give them direct evidence contrary to what their beliefs are, and they will usually just double down, get angry, block you, and not want to talk to you anymore. They get angry. Now, a lot of it's, if we're going to be fair, sometimes it's how we present these facts to them. We're like, gotcha, bitch, pow, for discourse, it's a tricky thing, because once you get emotions involved, it just gets ugly on both sides, The second you make it a personal attack, you have zero chance of getting through to whoever you're trying to talk to. I'm not saying you did that, and that's what the left always does, they always make it personal, they call me names when I suggest an opinion, instead of talking about the opinion I suggested. And it's very presumptuous. They don't know anything about me outside of what I've posted in these videos. So I don't know, which is why I try not to, even though I will strongly disagree and dislike the people that are talking to me based on the way they're talking to me, I still won't make personal comments about them, because I've never met them and I don't know a thing about them, and I'm not going to be presumptuous. they won't give me the same courtesy, but what are you going to do? You know, the door's always open for discourse, though. You know, this, like, my sister won't talk to me because of our political differences, but the second she decides she wants to, I'm here. You know, I ain't mad at you. I don't like you, but I ain't mad at you, if that makes sense. I will say, though, how telling is it that just something as simple as a little controversy in a tabletop game has essentially turned this channel into what could be considered a you know, political talk piece. You say, I'm not into politics. I was just, you know, this all started because they made a switch to a tabletop game that we all like, and we argued about that, but it's so entwined in the modern culture war and politics that it turns you political, and that's a bummer. It really is, man, because I'd rather talk about, like, lore. I'd rather talk about the game itself. I'd rather talk about the hobby, but I guess people find the argument more interesting, so, you know, I guess it's an easy way to get views. All right, first comment I open up my laptop to is do a code 6633. I used to never bring up race even when I was targeted for my appearance. Now I'm told everything is about race. My recent DEI segment at work, a major corporation, probably smart of you not to say who you work for, made it very clear it's entirely about race, and it's a straight white male is only to be included if they adopt allyship. Using resistance band while watching kids, still taking it slow after my second of surgery. The first one didn't take it slow, and it took over a year to heal. I asked him for an update on his physical. We needed more open discussions in this world, especially in the U.S. People need to understand their differences of opinions. It's okay not to agree on everything. We will never agree on everything. I mean, how are you going to even have a discussion with everybody if you agree with them? What's there to even talk about? I have a few friends who voted for Biden. I have more friends who chastised me for pointing out early in 2016 that he was going to take it, even though I did not vote for him on the first run. Too many depend on the media to tell them how to think, and rarely focus on truly what happened. I had suspected Biden was going to win too, because we knew that they were stealing the vote, and just saying that meant tinfoil hat. But it's like, no, I mean, the way they went about it is pretty slick, and they'll probably do that again this election. It kind of sucks, to be honest with you. I mean, like, they talk about, like, if Trump gets into office, he's never going to leave. Like, he'll never leave. He's just going to take over. How's that going to happen? You can't. It's up to us to prevent that. Like, me being a conservative, I would not want that from a conservative president. But the way the Democrats are going about doing it is they're gaming the system. So they're basically making it so they can't lose. And if we don't catch up, and so the reason why the Supreme Court wouldn't hear a lot of the cases that Trump had brought forth is not because he didn't have good evidence. He had outstanding evidence. The argument was that we should have brought it up before the election. But we didn't have the foresight to see what was going to happen until the election was over with. So it's a lose-lose. And I understand their point. They're not going to de-seat a sitting president. It's historically never happened. Although they did just make one a felon over some bullshit nonsense. So, I mean, I guess they can do whatever they want. So we need to be proactive. We have to be proactive to make sure we don't lose the vote, because in a lot of ways, like, the thing that they fear that the right's going to do, they're doing right now. And this is what I always tell my liberal friends. Like, you can cheer every time something happens to your opposition, but those precedents you set, which give the government those powers to do that, what are you going to do when all of a sudden you're the unpopular opinion and now they have the power to do it to you? You're not thinking this through too well. We are setting some very dangerous precedents, and that's my concerns. It's like the power we're giving them to get the people you don't like, which is like, no, I don't see it. I don't celebrate that at all. I'm a small government kind of guy, and the less power they have, the better. Man, one thing you did say I wanted to touch on is you have to adopt allyship. So I work for a steel erection company, and it's all iron workers. You know, they're for the most part conservative, good old boys, we'll say. And I saw emails that were talking about inclusivity training and stuff like that, and I was just like, yeah, okay, see how that goes down. The one thing I still have the advantage of in my field is that you do have to be able to do the work. So it's kind of hard to do like quotas when if they don't have the skills. Kind of like, although I don't know. Well, construction's pretty diverse though, so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how, because it's starting to affect our trades as well. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I do think that we are starting to correct course. I'm seeing signs of it. People are speaking out more. But my other fear is when that pendulum does swing, it's going to go back far the other way, and we have to be careful to make sure that our side doesn't go too far with it. You know, you got to stop. You want an equilibrium. You want to get that pendulum to sit. You don't want to be tyranny, and we're playing tennis, and you know payback. You know, I want to pay them back for all the wrongs they did us. No. Just move forward. What's done is done. We need to move forward. You know, I'm not interested in seeking my revenge on the perceived slights. Nothing ever changes. If you go back, it's always been a pendulum swing, but now it's getting really ugly. And if we could just get back to the point where we could just talk about things, I mean, that would be probably a good start. And you know what? Tabletop games are a good way to start because it's just a board game. And if we can talk about the thing we love, find our similarities as opposed to our differences. You might disagree with everything about me as a person, but we can still set our armies up, get some dice, and play a game together, right? We have that in common. Same thing with lifting weights. You know, the weights don't care what your politics are. Slap something on a bar and start moving that sucker. I actually have a lifting comment. Weightlifting. So this is from Emeretta Robinson. Emeretta, you have a very long comment. I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but you are talking about squatting. So, Texas Squat Queen is who you're talking about. She says she used to be a power lifter and that she still squats like one. She gave some really good points to focus on. She mentions bracing the core and sitting into the squat and not leaning forward. That said, she said that is how not to cause a hip injury. I hadn't thought of it as a potential cause of hip injuries, but what she said made sense. She also mentioned that liking hip thrusts because she has not liking with hip thrusts because she has weak glutes. So squatting is interesting. I don't know. Hip injury. I've never hurt my hips squatting ever. I don't really know anyone who has. I've known plenty of people that have hurt their hips deadlifting. With squatting, what it is like how far you sit back or lean forward depends on the center of gravity. So if you think of your feet, like here's your legs, this is your femur, and this is your feet. Here's your back. This would be your head. Depending on where that bar is on your back will determine the center of gravity over your feet. Your feet are the fulcrum. That's where it's planted into the ground. That's your lever back and forth. Your body moves back and forth by your ankles. Midfoot is your pivot point. So if the bar farther down on your back, it's going to push that center of gravity forward. If you have the bar higher on your back, it's going to push you back, which is going to, center of gravity is going to be a little bit higher. Low bar squat, you're actually pushing from the hips. So as you squat down, you're pushing up with the small of your back, and that's where you're generating the force. High bar squat, you're breaking the knees first, and you're pushing up with your shoulders. And there's more to it than that, but we call it the moment arm, which is the distance between the hips and the knees. Your center of gravity is going to be more glutes and quads, and is it going to be more glutes, hips dominant, or is it going to be more quad dominant, depending on where that bar is on your back, your center of gravity. And that's also going to determine, like, we don't really look for leaning forward. We look for the bar to move straight up and down, so you're fighting gravity directly and you have no lateral movement. So if you're leaning forward, it's called pancaking, and you'll see when we use our barbell tracker, it'll cause like a lean in the line. Where if you're fighting gravity directly, that line will be straight up and down, and that's a pretty good indication that you're dialed in. But then it just becomes like, well, what do you want this squat to do? Generally speaking, more people can squat more. So if your goal is a 1 rep max, most people can squat more with a low bar squat using their glutes, their hips. But there's some Olympic lifters that are really strong, and they are ass to grass total front squat or high bar squat. So I think really what it comes down to is how you're built, how long your femurs are, how tall you are, that kind of thing. And how much you practice. If you grew up doing nothing but high bar squatting, you're probably going to be really strong at it. Me, I've got one of those builds where it's like I don't really have any advantage or disadvantage no matter what I do. I have like a kind of like an Ed Cohn build where I'm not like really long or short in any one area. I'm just like that average build across the board. So if I were to do sumo deadlifts or conventional deadlifts, I would not get any advantage out of either of them. As a matter of fact, my sumo and my conventional pull are almost the exact same amount. So then what it comes down to is just utilizing the lifts to target specifically what you want to work on. The sumo's great because it, kind of takes your lower back out of the lift and it really hammers the crap out of your quads. Things like good mornings, take your legs out of it and work your back. High bar squats, really awesome for the quads, but it still works your posterior chain. Low bar squats, really awesome for your glutes, but it still works your quads. All of them have carryover. I always say just keep it simple. Pick a good form that you're comfortable with. Get accustomed to doing it regularly and try to perfect it. Get that one lift, get a regular squat, just go and get it strong. Start squatting a couple times a week, and 6 months you're going to be legitimately strong, guaranteed. Simple as that. Progressive overload plus consistency. Alright, I think that's enough for today's video, and we'll pick them up tomorrow. Later this evening I'm actually going to do some weight training, so I'll have some more footage for y'all. I'll try to get, one day is art and crafts, and the next day is hitting that iron. Maybe I'll start mixing them all together. Maybe what I'll just make the videos about is just me instead of what I do. We'll see. I don't know. That seems to be what it's evolving into. But as always, I would love to hear your feedback. I love you guys. I will see you on the battlefield.